With Madden NFL 21 now less than 2 months away, now is around the time where some of your favorite franchise mode content creators will be selecting their teams that they'll be using for rebuilding on their respective channels. Whether you choose to stick with Madden 20, shovel out $60 for Madden 21, or even update some of the previous titles like Madden 12 or ESPN NFL 2K5, just like my boy Uncle Sam's Reject is doing on his secondary channel, here is a list of 10 teams in no particular order that you should consider rebuilding this year. If you guys are interested in looking out for my franchise rebuild this year, you should hit that subscribe button. Also, hit the like button to support the channel as well. A good friend of the channel, Franchise Gaming, is currently running a Madden 20 franchise with Washington. If you guys like watching franchise content, I would very much recommend his channel. Washington's an interesting team to consider for this year. They're coming off a rough season, but now have a new coach and former Panthers head coach, Ron Rivera, and there's absolutely a possibility that you could take this team to the playoffs in year one. But there are plenty of roadblocks to using them, as the jury is still out on starting quarterback Dwayne Haskins, meaning you can still draft a quarterback if that's what allures you as far as doing a rebuild goes. The running back situation is a doozy as well, as you have an aging Adrian Peterson, an injury-prone but promising Darius Geis, and the newly acquired Peyton Barber. If you're going to use the Washington football team, adding in another receiver to the fold to complement Terry McLaurin is going to have to be a priority. You'll also have the task of rebuilding a porous offensive line. The defensive line is probably the strongest part of the team, as you have a strong veteran presence with Ryan Kerrigan and two young pass rushers in Montez Sweat and the number 2 overall pick in the previous draft, Chase Young, with Matthew Ioannidis, Deron Payne, and Jonathan Allen holding it down in the middle. At linebacker, you have two young but promising starters in Sean Dion Hamilton and Reuben Foster, but we'll have to look for a replacement for Thomas Davis Sr., who at 36 doesn't have much time left. The cornerback situation is promising with the likes of Kendall Fuller and Ronald Darby now in the fold. Getting a free safety could also be a priority if Sean Davis and or Troy Apke don't pan out. All in all, Washington's football team can interest some of you who may not want to draft a quarterback for your rebuilds. And if you're looking for a team that you could possibly take to the playoffs in year one, this is the team for you. The Panthers are a team with a lot of offensive firepower. However, the roadblock of this particular team is the defense. While Cam Newton and Greg Olsen were no doubt huge losses, there was arguably no bigger loss than the retiring Luke Kuechly. Replacing him sooner rather than later should be your main goal. While I myself am a big advocate of Teddy Bridgewater, and with him still being relatively young for the quarterback position at 27, this is another situation where you may not necessarily need to draft a quarterback, but you still could if you chose to do so. You also have PJ Walker at quarterback if that's the route you wanted to go. You do have one of the best weapons at running back in Christian McCaffrey, who is widely considered to be the best all-around running back in the NFL, as well as a strong core of receivers with DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and the newly acquired Robbie Anderson. Ian Thomas is a promising tight end option, and the Panthers also have a decent enough offensive line, although there are holes that you'll have to fill. Again, the real challenge is rebuilding the defense. You do have two promising pass rushers in Brian Burns and Yetur Gross-Matos, and a solid interior line with Kawan Short and Derek Brown in the middle, as well as Zach Kerr being a veteran backup. While you do have Shaq Thomas in the middle, you'll need to add at least one more linebacker to the fold to replace Kuechly. The secondary is at least somewhat formidable, with Dante Jackson and Troy Pride being in the mix as the young corners on the team. Eli Apple is, well, Eli Apple. Trey Boston is good enough as a free safety, and the starting strong safety looks to be Jeremy Chin, who is a rookie. The Panthers have a decent enough roster overall and are another team you could possibly take to the playoffs in year one, depending on how good your stick skill is. But there are definitely a lot of roadblocks in doing so, and playing in a division with Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Matt Ryan isn't going to be easy at all. Staying within the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons are another team you could look to rebuild. With them not being able to live down blowing a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl to this day, you could finally help them get that monkey off their back. The biggest roadblock in this rebuild is the Falcons are a team in win-now mode, but they don't have the roster to win now. Also, as I mentioned with the Panthers, their division is tough. This Falcons offense isn't getting any younger, and you'll have to eventually draft or sign a younger quarterback to replace Matt Ryan. At running back, you do have a good 1-2 punch in Todd Gurley and Ito Smith. And you have one of the best receiving corps in the league with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Laquan Treadwell. Jones is in the twilight of his career, however, so you might have to look to replace him. Tight end might be another issue on the team, as Hayden Hurst, in my opinion, is a big downgrade from Austin Hooper. And their O-line, while young, is very lackluster. Defensively, the Falcons are a little worse for wear, with Dante Fowler and Takk McKinley as the starters on the edge, and Grady Jarrett and Tyler Davison still in the middle of the defensive line. At linebacker, you have rookie Michael Walker, the veteran Deion Jones, and Foye Oluokun. The Falcons' weakness on defense is really their cornerbacks. They did draft A.J. Terrell, but he got torched in the national championship, so I don't expect his rating to be too high. And with the release of Desmond Trufant, there's not much veteran leadership there. That being said, you do have two good safeties in Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal. The Falcons are another team that, if you play your cards right, you could be a playoff team in your first year. But with an average at best offensive line and aging veterans at quarterback and receiver, this team needs a lot of retooling on the offensive side before they can really be a contender. After making the playoffs in 2018, last year many people thought that Club Dub would pick up right where they left off. That unfortunately was not the case, as quarterback troubles, among other things, kept them from making it. The Bears are a team that I think a lot of people are going to be rebuilding this year, and why not? They have a situation where their starting quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, has underachieved and is in the last year of his contract. You could ride it out with Nick Foles, but if you wanted to draft your own quarterback, this is the team to pick. Looking at the rest of the offense, you have two good young running backs in Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery. In the receiving core, you could stand to improve it a little more. They have promising young talent in Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller, but you'll probably need to improve off of that. They have a plethora of tight end talent as well, including Jimmy Graham and the newly drafted Cole Kmet. Luckily, offensive line won't be too big of an issue, with them having one of the better offensive lines on this list. The Bears' front seven is probably one of the best on the list as well, if not the best. Their defensive line has studs all around, with Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman holding it down. Their linebackers are also very good as well. Of course you have Khalil Mack, but you also have the likes of Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, and Robert Quinn. You may need to get a replacement for Trevathan, who's getting up there in age and has been injury prone over the past few years. Robert Quinn is also up there in age, but they're both very serviceable starters for the time being. Their secondary is also formidable, with Kyle Fuller leading the pack of corners. Their secondary is also pretty good, with Kyle Fuller leading the pack of corners, though you may have to get a replacement for Buster Skrine sooner rather than later. But you have one of the best starting free safeties in the league in Eddie Jackson, and Tashawn Gibson is a pretty good strong safety. The Bears' defense is pretty set at this point, though you'll have to get a few replacements there. You'll just pretty much have to get a new quarterback and some new receivers, and you'll be able to bring Club Dub back to the playoffs. In the words of the former governor of California, "And now go Chargers, go." I really need to work on my Arnold impression. But anyways, the Chargers are another team that aren't necessarily a bad team in need of a total overhaul. They just play in a really tough division. The Chiefs, of course, won the Super Bowl last year, and the Broncos and Raiders are both on the rise as well. For the first time since 2005, somebody not named Phillip Rivers will be the official starting quarterback for the Chargers. You have a selection of quarterbacks already on the team between veteran Tyrod Taylor, rookie Justin Herbert, and former NDSU star Easton Stick. Austin Eckler is an absolute legend to me, as I still remember the day that he rated me on Twitch, and have a lot of adoration for him doing so. With Melvin Gordon now gone, Eckler is more than likely going to be your feature back, but you have a pretty good backup in Justin Jackson as well. The Chargers have a lot of talent at receiver, with the often injured Keenan Allen being the leader of the pack. You also have one of the better tight ends in the league in Hunter Henry. You'll be tasked, however, with fixing the left side of the offensive line and even possibly picking up future replacements at center and right tackle, with Mike Pouncey and Brian Bulaga approaching their twilights of their respective careers. Defensively, the Chargers are better off than most, but they do have a good amount of players who are currently in contract years, including Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Linval Joseph is in the middle of the defensive line, but you'll likely have to find a replacement for him soon, as he's going to be over 30 years old this season. The linebacking core is young but talented, and the addition of Kenneth Murray makes him very enticing. Out of all the teams on this list, they probably have the best situation at cornerback with Casey Hayward, Chris Harris Jr., and Desmond King. Rayshon Jenkins is a decent free safety in the last year of his contract, and at strong safety, you have one of the best in the game in Derwin James. Depending on how you address the players who are impending free agents, this could be more of a retooling process as opposed to a full-out rebuild. But with all the talent in the division on other teams, winning won't be easy if you pick the Chargers. The Jaguars are one of the teams that many people see as being the worst in the league on paper heading into this season, and for good reason. A team that surprised everyone by making it to the AFC Championship a few years ago has once again become one of the laughingstocks of the NFL. The Jaguars are going to be one of the more popular teams to rebuild in Madden 21. If you're a believer in Minshew Mania, then you can see what you can get out of Gardner Minshew. If not, there aren't many options on the team that you can find outside of him, and you may have to look elsewhere to find your quarterback. At halfback, Leonard Fournette is in a contract year, and you may have to restart at the running back position, especially if realism is big to you. Chris Thompson is a good third down running back option, but you'll have to look into free agency or in the draft to find your feature back. The receiving core is solid with a lot of very good young talent around him, led by DJ Chark, who had a breakout season last year. D.D. Westbrook, Chris Conley, Keelan Cole, and rookie Laviska Shenault all look to be solid weapons as well. You also have a good tight end tandem in Tyler Eifert and James O'Shaughnessy. The Jaguars' offensive line is actually not that bad this year. You do have two young guys you can develop, and two veterans in the interior in Andrew Norwell and Brandon Linder. Defensively, the Jaguars have two young, talented pass rushers in Josh Allen and Clavon Chason. And again, if realism is important, Yannick Ngakoue probably won't be playing for you, so you'll be able to focus on the younger guys on the team. Taven Bryan looks to be the future at defensive tackle, but you'll probably have to look elsewhere for someone next to him as the Jaguars run a 4-3. Miles Jack headlines the linebacking core, although you could be like me and move him to safety like I did in my Buccaneers franchise, which you can see in the top right corner. You'll probably have to get another outside linebacker as the jury's still out on Quincy Williams and Leon Jacobs. Joe Schobert is a solid addition at middle linebacker. The Jaguars did draft C.J. Henderson this past April, but you'll probably need replacements for DJ Hayden and Rashaan Melvin, who will both be 30 this year. You'll probably also need a replacement at free safety, and at strong safety, you could develop Ronnie Harrison or find an upgrade. The Jaguars have the most holes out of all the teams mentioned on this list, and this will not be an easy rebuild in the slightest. That said, given the perceived level of difficulty in rebuilding them, this could be one of the more rewarding rebuilds. This might be one of the more intriguing franchise options, considering the fact that the Steelers have been a fixture in the playoffs more times than not over the course of their time in the NFL. But I do feel like the Steelers' offense needs a bit of rebuilding, and with them having missed the playoffs for now the past two seasons, they could be heading into a full-out rebuild stage themselves. Ben Roethlisberger is going to be 38 this season, and with neither Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges really looking like the answer to replace him, if you're looking for a team that needs a quarterback, this is another good choice. You may also have to address the running back and receiver positions, as James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster are both impending free agents. James Washington could still develop into a good number 2 option, and Deontay Johnson and rookie Chase Claypool could also develop into something. You have 2 good tight end options in Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald, but the offensive line is another place where you'll have to revamp this season, as most of their good offensive linemen are going to be 30 or older. Defensively, there's not a whole lot of retooling needed, though you might have to look for replacements for Tyson Alualu and Cameron Hayward. TJ Watt continues to develop into one of the best pass rushers in the league, and you'll have a solid tandem at middle linebacker in Vince Williams and Devin Bush, though Williams is getting older. Bud Dupree is a solid outside linebacker, but he's in the contract year, playing this season on the franchise tag. The Steelers actually have a formidable cornerback situation with Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson as his starters. Hayden is in his 30s now, however, so drafting a young corner or signing someone in free agency may be the move there. You're good at safety with Micah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds there, but you could look to draft a free safety if you feel like moving Fitzpatrick back to corner. All in all, the Steelers probably aren't the most popular team to put on a list like this, but I feel like with Roethlisberger getting older and with Conner and Smith-Schuster both in contract seasons, the Steelers are almost a perfect team to rebuild if you want a challenge, especially with how good the Ravens are and with the Browns and Bengals possibly being on the come up as well. The Tom Brady era in New England is now over. For the first time since 2000, he's no longer on the Patriots roster, but he's not the only big-name Patriot to leave, as they also lost Kyle Van Noy. So both sides on the roster are in need of a possible overhaul. Cam Newton was recently signed by the Patriots, so if he ends up doing well for you, or even if you roll with Jarrett Stidham, drafting a quarterback won't be necessary, but that option is certainly plausible for this team. You won't need to draft a running back, however, as you have a solid situation with James White, Sony Michel, and Rex Burkhead. You also have a nice selection of receivers with Julian Edelman and Mohamed Sanu still with the team, and Marquise Lee and N'Keal Harry there as well. With that being said, Edelman and Sanu are now in their 30s, and Lee is approaching that age as well. So you may need to look at addressing the receiver position. They did pick up Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene in the draft, so you could have your future at tight end already, and their offensive line is still solid. Defensively, you do have some guys who are getting up there in age. John Simon and Lawrence Guy are both heading into the twilight of their careers. Adam Butler in the middle is still pretty young, though. Middle linebacker almost certainly has to be addressed, as Dante Hightower is getting up there in age. Jawan Bentley and Josh Uche are good as the outside linebackers, though. Cornerback could end up being a big need for them, as Stephon Gilmore, though still considered by many to be the best cornerback in the league, is approaching his 30s, and Jason McCourty is already 33. That being said, you have 2 good young corners in Jonathan Jones and J.C. Jackson, so they could be the future at the position. You'll still need to get younger upgrades at both safety positions, with Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung both in their 30s. I know everybody hates the Patriots, but with Tom Brady gone, this team is definitely possibly heading towards a rebuild, and would be a perfect team to use in Madden 21 if you wanted to challenge. The Dolphins were in full rebuild mode for the past 2 seasons, and even though they got rid of almost all their star players in that 2-year span, they were still pretty competitive towards the end of last season when they were expected to be tanking. Now they have the foundation set to possibly compete in the near future. At quarterback, if you really wanted to keep it realistic and have Tua Tagovailoa sit out the entire season due to his hip injury last season, then you still have a pretty good year 1 option in Ryan Fitzpatrick. You could even see what you could do with Josh Rosen. The Dolphins have added 2 new running backs in Matt Breida and Jordan Howard, so you can see what you could do with them in the running game. At receiver, the Dolphins have some youth at receiver in Preston Williams, but at this point, most of their receivers are just kind of going to be who they are, including Devontae Parker. So you may have to look elsewhere for your number one receiving option. Tight end Mike Gesicki could end up being developed into one of the best tight ends in the league if you play your cards right. This is also a pretty solid offensive line that you're starting out with, though it's looking like they're going to have 3 starters who are rookies. Defensively, Miami has a lot of young talent, including Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogbah are also solid. Devin Godchaux is the starting defensive tackle, but he's entering a contract season, so you may have to get a new defensive tackle if you're not satisfied with him, unless you're a fan of Raekwon Davis. The Dolphins' biggest acquisition on defense is Kyle Van Noy. He is 29, but you can still get some good years out of him. Raekwon McMillan is entering a contract season, so you'll have to evaluate that. Landon Roberts and Jerome Baker will battle for the second spot most likely. Vince Beagle is also in a contract year, so you'll have some evaluation to do at the linebacker level. The Dolphins did pick up Byron Jones to go along with Xavier Howard, while Noah Igbenogany can be developed into a starter as well. Even with trading Minkah Fitzpatrick, the Dolphins still have a formidable safety tandem in Bobby McCain and Eric Rowe. All in all, the Dolphins are a lot better off than they were last year, but they still have a lot of things they need to work on before they'll really be able to contend, which makes them a great candidate to be your franchise rebuild team. The team formerly residing in Oakland had another rough season last year. The release of Antonio Brown really fire-started a lot of issues for the Raiders, and they only got worse with all the injuries that the team had. That being said, all that makes them a perfect candidate for a franchise rebuild this year. Derek Carr is still the quarterback for the Raiders, but Marcus Mariota was recently signed to a little more than normal backup quarterback money, which begs the question, could there be a change at quarterback? The choice is yours. You could also look to draft if Carr and Mariota don't tickle your fancy. You do have a great young running back to develop in Josh Jacobs, as well as a plethora of talent at the receiver position, with guys like Tyrell Williams, Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, and Zay Jones. You also have Darren Waller and Jason Witten at tight end, so you're not without weapons offensively. You'll probably just need a quarterback. You will have to think about getting replacements on the offensive line, though, as Rodney Hudson and Richie Incognito are on the wrong side of 30. Defensively, Max Crosby is heading into his second season and looks to be a stud at defensive end, with Carl Nassib and Clellan Ferrell also in the mix. Maurice Hurst and Jonathan Hankins are 2 solid defensive tackles, so the Raiders' defensive line is pretty good, but could still be upgraded. Linebacker is really where you're going to have issues, however, as Markel Lee is in a contract year and could possibly be replaced. New additions Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski are good, but not great. At cornerback, Prince Amukamara is getting older and is past his prime, and Nevin Lawson is pretty much at his peak potential. You could see what Damon Arnett and Trayvon Mullen can do at the position, but you may have to acquire more talent at the corner position. Demarius Randall is a solid option at free safety for the time being, and Jonathan Abram could be special at strong safety. The Raiders have plenty of talent on the team, but as with the Chargers, they play in a tough division, and I'm not so sure that they'll have the talent to usurp the Chiefs at the moment. With that being said, you can be the one to make their first few seasons in Sin City memorable ones. That's going to do it for my top 10 list of teams to rebuild this year. Let me know in the comment section if you feel like I left anybody out, or if you feel like I probably shouldn't have put one of these teams on the list. Let me know in the comment section as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and also hit the subscribe button as well for franchise and dynasty content on my channel, as well as news and other updates on Madden 21 and other games. Make sure you guys turn your notifications on to join the notification gang. That way every time I drop a new video, you guys will be notified. If you do have your notifications turned on and you feel like you're not getting my videos still, then make sure you guys are following me on Twitter and even join my Discord server as well, which are all in the description, as I update both with every piece of content that I upload on this channel. If you guys enjoy what I do on this channel and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. There are plenty of perks to being a patron of my channel, including early uploads, priority on making characters for any of my series, and much, much more. Being a patron on my channel is always appreciated, but never required. I just appreciate the fact that you guys watch my videos at all. But anyways, that's going to do it for me today, guys. You have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day and night whenever you're watching this. Like I always say, guys, no matter what happens, make sure you keep that mofo rolling. I love y'all 3000. I'm Audi 5000. Deuces.